CareerFoundry event, and we've got a very special event today because we're hosting one of our team members, Calum, who will be presenting 8 essential tactics to grow a YouTube channel. We've got a public chat on the right-hand side. We're also streaming this on YouTube, but for Big Marker, if you're tuning in on Big Marker, just write where you're joining from, your name, and also why you're interested in learning about YouTube. We want to make this as interactive as possible, so please just jump in on the chat, and we'd love to see all your comments. Let me just introduce CareerFoundry first before Calum kicks off. We're an online school, and we take people from scratch. We take people from scratch and teach them the most in-demand tech skills. So we offer career change programs in UX design, UI design, web development, data analytics, and we've just released digital marketing. And as we all know, YouTube is a very important part of today's digital marketing. Hi, Paul. Welcome. And also very briefly about house rules, we're also going to be doing a Q&A at the end. So Callum's going to be presenting. We'd love to field questions whilst Callum's talking, but obviously at the end, we're going to be jumping in. I've got some questions, and we'd love to also take questions from the audience. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, because this is all about YouTube, just write your comments there, and we'll also be taking questions from YouTube too. So without further ado, Calum, I think I'm just going to disappear. I'm going to give you the floor. I think
I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be cool. Yeah, thanks a lot, Will. So hey everyone, as Will mentioned, my name is Calum. I'm the video team lead here at CareerFoundry. This is my first CareerFoundry event as a host, so please bear with me. It's my first time using Big Marker as a presenter. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited. Maybe you can drop in the chat where you're tuning in from, if you're watching on Big Marker or if you're watching on YouTube. Let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. And as Will said, I'm quite interested to hear why you're interested in YouTube generally. Before we get started, I can maybe introduce myself a bit more, my background, and also what we'll be doing in the event. But in this event in particular, we are going to be looking at 8 essential tactics to grow a YouTube channel. So yeah, we're going to be covering 8 tactics, as I mentioned. Ranging from things like consistency to keyword research, with a sort of an essential mindset at the end. I think some of these are quite practical and hopefully quite tangible for you just to take away. I will say that it's more of an overview for each of these. We only have about 40 minutes, so I can't really do a deep dive into each of these tactics. So hopefully quite practical, and 1 or 2 a bit more theoretical based on my own meandering experience working in video marketing for the last 3 years. So firstly, yeah, as I said, let us know in the comments, what is YouTube to you? I'm really keen to hear your thoughts on this. I think I was saying to Will earlier before the event started, it's quite hard to imagine a world without YouTube now. I think Will actually asked me what the first YouTube video I ever watched was, and I honestly can't remember a time when it wasn't in my life. So yeah, I'm not that young. I'm 34, so I should remember that time. But it seems like it's a tool that's been around forever and a platform that's been around forever. Which is cool, but I'm keen to hear what you use YouTube for. What do you use as a search engine to sort of problem solve? Do you use it for entertainment? Is it a replacement for television for you? Let us know in the chat, and I can pick some comments up as we're going through this event. So, firstly, a little bit about me. I'm originally from Edinburgh, Scotland. I'm somewhat of a career changer myself, which is maybe why I've ended up at CareerFoundry as well. But yeah, I've had a pretty varied work experience so far. I've not been in video marketing my whole life. But I had, as I say, a varied background. I started off as a geography student back in my early 20s. And a number of years later, I went on to retrain in interactive design. And that was kind of what kickstarted this career in video marketing. So this interactive design course at a local college in Edinburgh led me on to an internship at the United Kingdom's meteorological office. Or as I affectionately call them, the weather people. For anyone in the UK, they'll know exactly who they are. And in that internship, I had a 10-week internship with them working in-house in their design and content agency. So that was really cool. It was my first taste of kind of applying design and basic video editing and animation and things like that to an actual working content team. So that was really cool. And I was there for 10 weeks. Moving on from there, I had a couple of months where I was looking for work, and I basically started to apply a little bit further afield than Scotland and the UK, and I came across AJ and Smart. It was a product design agency based in Berlin, or it is a product design agency and workshopping consultancy based in Berlin. And they were looking for a video content producer at the time. So I didn't really have any experience using cameras or editing software. It was very much a baptism of fire, if you will. But I ended up getting the job there, and I worked there for about 2 years before moving on, just down the road actually, to CareerFoundry. And that's where I've taken on the role as video team lead within CareerFoundry. And most recently, we're kind of pivoting slightly. So the team that I lead now just focuses on YouTube content and growing out CareerFoundry's YouTube. So on to what on this slide here, I was just to give you a quick overview of the channels I've worked on previously. So as I say, currently working at CareerFoundry, and since we've started publishing content on YouTube, we've had quite explosive growth, I would say, in the last year or so. So when I joined the company, we were about 18,000 subscribers, and now the channel is just about to hit 90,000, and we're aiming to hit about 100,000 within the next month and a half, which is really cool. And when I started at AJ Smart, the channel was also a similar size. It was about 18,000, and when I left about a year and a half later, it was 155,000. And I'm really chuffed to say that a lot of the videos that I helped produce there are now also contributing to future growth at the company. So their channel is now like 250,000, just over 250,000 subscribers. So yeah, just to cover some assumptions about this event. So I would say my assumptions with this, if you're interested in the kind of in growing out a YouTube channel, maybe you're looking at doing that for personal reasons. Maybe you want to start your own YouTube channel and start sharing your career change journey, or start making content around your profession or your interests. That's also cool. Maybe you're looking for a career in digital marketing with a focus on video marketing, and you're maybe just looking for some tangible tactics. So I think in this event, I'll try and share my own experiences and my own knowledge across the 8 tactics. As I said, I won't be going too deep into any one area, and hopefully this serves as more of an overview to kind of broaden your understanding and help you get started. So let's dive into another YouTube question. Like I mentioned before, finding a bit more about why you're on the platform and such. But I want you to think and kind of keep it at the back of your mind as we're going through this event. Who are your favorite creators on YouTube and why? And really think deeply about that. Like, what is it about these creators that you come back for time and time again? Why do you spend time consuming their content and engaging with their channels? What is it about these channels that you're most interested in? And hopefully some things that I mentioned in this event will be quite relevant and kind of spark some thoughts as to why these creators do things a certain way. Perhaps I can share my favorite channels at the minute. I've got I'm a bit of a fanboy for Casey Neistat. He's if you're interested in video making and vlogging and things, he's one of the original greats. And the videographer that I came in underneath at AJ Smart, the senior videographer at the time, really got me into his videos and just the way he approaches storytelling and content making. So I find Casey Neistat is always really good to check out if you want some inspiration on just getting outdoors with a camera. It's really inspiring, and there's a lot of really cool stuff that he does there. So you can learn a lot from him. My other channel that I would say I'm a big fan of, I've actually got a poster, some merchandise behind me here, is a channel called I can never pronounce this. Kurzgesagt. It's actually a German graphic design agency, I believe, but a number of years ago they started pivoting to doing animation videos on YouTube, and they do very in-depth, really beautifully animated videos where they explain quite complex scientific phenomena or curiosities, and explain it in this really colorful, vivid way. And some of the videos are a bit theoretical and a bit out there. But yeah, there's lots there to consume, and their channel is massive. I think they've got nearly 20 million subscribers now as well. So they do a fantastic job. I would definitely check out both of these channels if you haven't already. So let's dive straight in. And my first tactic that I want to talk to you about, assuming that you want to start creating on YouTube and you want to start making videos and growing a channel there, is consistency. Now, consistency is key. YouTube, I think the perception around YouTube is that it has quite a high barrier to entry. It's not a traditional social media platform where you can post a static and a caption and it will get buried within a day or two in the algorithm. There's usually quite a lot of work and quite a lot of effort, or perceived a lot of work, that can go into creating videos for YouTube. When you think about it, the planning, the editing, the publishing, generating thumbnails, distributing the videos, it's definitely a platform that I feel is quite a long-term play. And I realize that might be a little bit daunting for some people out there, but I can assure you And hopefully the tactics I share throughout this video will reassure you that it's actually incredibly rewarding, and there are certain things that you can do to make life a lot easier for yourself. But in terms of consistency, the thing that I've learned, I'd say is the most fundamental learning I've had in the last 3 years is definitely publishing consistently. And what do I mean by consistency? I would say showing up and publishing content, depending on the resources and the time that you have, is the best way to generate growth. I think a channel that's kind of lying fallow and not publishing new content on a regular basis will not grow with any degree of speed. I think with consistency, you have to keep in mind that it has to be healthy, it has to be sustainable, and I think generating a replicable pattern is definitely key. I've definitely been in situations where things have felt like a bit never ending. You're in a kind of weekly cycle of publishing content, and it can go a bit astray. So definitely find a rhythm and a pace with the publishing that it fits your resources, it fits your time, it fits your budget, and it should be fun first and foremost. So don't let it lead to burnout, or like a lot of creators now talk about this YouTube burnout by going all in too fast. That said, sporadic, inconsistent releases over time doesn't really lead to any kind of meaningful growth. Starting and stopping is not too favorable with YouTube, and I think if there's one piece of advice I can maybe pass on in terms of consistency, is being organized. So being organized, having all your ducks in the line, so to speak, batch filming videos, batch generating briefs, and things like that will keep you on point. And I think the thing that resonates with me the most, another favorite YouTuber that I follow is a channel called Ali Abdal. It's actually a gentleman called Ali Abdal who posts videos around productivity and things like that. But he has this mantra of get going, get good, and get smart. And the consistency element here that we tie back to is the get going. So as long as you can work on a sustainable release pattern where you're just publishing videos, in the first instance, you probably won't get a lot of views if you're just starting from zero. But as you start to build, people start to take notice. Then you have an extensive back catalog to draw on from. But just get going, just start publishing content. And yeah, there's hopefully some tips and tricks that you'll take from this event that can help you do that. But I think really fundamentally, just working on a consistent release schedule that you can stick to is key to start. So as I mentioned, kind of building a habit around the planning and production of content. I think what we've done currently at CareerFoundry is quite good. We tend to film content not every week. We tend to film it in batches. So what we'll do is we'll maybe have an ideation session where we generate a series of titles or ideas or concepts for videos. And typically we work with external talent at CareerFoundry. We have a number of our alumni community take part in videos, and some of our mentors and tutors also take part in video content. So we reach out to them, and usually they are willing and able to take part in the videos. But yeah, we would send in briefs, and we would perhaps batch film over the course of a day or two. And then you generate a good pipeline of content. I think, as I mentioned at the start, this kind of idea of like week in, week out, it can lead to burnout. But I think generating a solid pipeline of content where you can, go away, film with your team, or capture content with your team, whether you're working in an agency or some organization that's trying to grow a YouTube channel, or you're an individual creator, definitely building a bit of a batch will lead to more sustained releases going forward. And it makes it a bit easier and a bit fun for you as well. You can kind of dedicate a couple of days to it. This is maybe an example where I want to show you growth on the CareerFoundry channel as well. I wanted to dive in and just show you some of the analytics, and there'll be more graphs and charts as the event goes on. But this is a snapshot of CareerFoundry's YouTube channel. So looking back at 2021, you can see roughly in March, we started publishing weekly content. So that was one long form video each week up until at the end of December. And as you can see, there's focusing on the subscribers here, there's a pretty sustained growth from when we started in middle of March up until the end of December. You can see the subscriber chart going up and up and up. So I think that really does kind of highlight what just a sustained release and a consistent release schedule can do for your channel. The massive spike at the end of this chart here was actually a trends video, which we released at the end of December last year. I will touch on trends specifically as a tactic later in the event, but that led to some phenomenal subscriber growth. So I will touch on that later in case you're wondering what that massive spike is. And what other takeaways can I offer here? I mean, I think this is indicative of the fact that, and what I want to say here as well, like not all of these videos that we published are original, like, you know, in-person filmed events. There were definitely weeks where myself and the team, for whatever reasons, capacity or maybe different priorities, couldn't get a video out. And what we did in that instance was we would use our live events, so events like this, where we had recordings of speakers from all around the world, from our mentor and tutor community. We would take that event, maybe cut it up or maybe film a custom intro, tack that on and republish it on YouTube. And yeah, there was definitely weeks where we couldn't publish something, and that was a really nice stopgap. So we were always trying to publish regardless of if we had a sort of AAA long form video or not. So moving on, that was tactic one, I would say consistency. Keyword research would be my second tactic. And maybe if you've got a little bit of an interest in digital marketing or you've got some background there, you might already know what keyword research refers to. But in this tactic, I'll be sharing specifically how we kind of generate content ideas for YouTube off the back of this. So if I could maybe paraphrase keyword research, it's making videos that people want to watch and consume. So I think when you're starting out with a YouTube channel, if you're growing a channel, again, for a business or an organization that you're working for, maybe the business is going in on YouTube for whatever business purpose, or you're starting your own channel, definitely start out with keyword research. I think it's a great way to find out what people are looking for on YouTube, and essentially what people want to watch. So keywords, I don't think they're the be all and end all necessarily, but they will definitely help focus your initial efforts, and they represent particular words or phrases that people are searching for frequently. There's a couple of different ways you can undertake this kind of research. You can do it for free using Google and YouTube. I can touch on that in the next slide. And there's also paid tools. I won't really cover the paid tools right now, but if there's any questions about that in the Q&A, I can touch on that. So for example, when I mentioned YouTube and Google being a great source of information, it's often quite as simple as just going onto YouTube, and you can do it in incognito mode if you want to kind of clear your cache when you're doing this. But just going on YouTube and just typing in, say for example, with us, we're focused on UX design. We would just go into YouTube, type in UX design, and it gives you an autocomplete list of what people are searching for around that keyword. And then you can kind of then add in words and build out these kind of keyword autocomplete searches on YouTube, and you get quite interesting lists. The more detail you put in, the more niche and full the autocomplete suggestions are. So what does that look like? So in practice, if you want to figure out what kind of content to make around your niche, maybe you're interested in UX design, maybe it's baking, maybe it's, I don't know, the list is endless. But this just literally, looks like this. You go on the platform, you go on YouTube, and you type in, a good way to approach this is maybe typing in how to, and then your keywords. So you basically get a very full list that YouTube gives you that are the most searched for terms around that. And that's a really good way to kind of see what people are searching for. If you want to kind of mix it up a little bit, you can add this kind of wildcard element where you put how to and then an underscore and then your keyword, and it starts to give you quite specific search terms based on search volume, which is really interesting. And this can kind of inform your content decisions. Maybe you can then dive deeper into this and make a series of videos around a certain topic, but it will definitely give you very high demand search terms. And you can also do this on Google. You can just go into Google. I would recommend maybe incognito mode so it doesn't have any kind of bias from your search history. But again, if you go into Google and just type in UX design, you start to see a drop-down list of things that people are looking for. And it really is as simple as that. I mean, you can store these in a spreadsheet. You can, take note of them and use them in your content ideation sessions. But this is really how I would start if you were thinking of growing a YouTube channel, to see what other people are searching for on the internet. And it takes minutes to do. So say, for example, you type in UX design into Google here. You see a drop down of all the search terms. There's one that is maybe most relevant to your team or what you're looking to do. So say, for example, UX design jobs. You then type in job to the end of the keyword, and you get more specific terms relating to UX design jobs. And that's really powerful, right? Because then you can go on YouTube and you can also hit enter, and you can see the kind of content that other people are making around that search term. So if you go on YouTube right now, hopefully you will see that CareerFoundry actually have the top 2 search results for UX design jobs. Another video that I worked on comes in a close third. But it's really cool. And this also gives you an idea of the quality of the content that's out there. So you can see not only what people are searching for, but what they're consuming and what they're watching and how that's ranking in YouTube. So I would definitely take this approach when you're starting out. And if you're ever struggling for content ideas, you can literally see the top five, say, ranking search results for that search term. And then just make sure that your content's maybe that little bit more engaging, that little bit more entertaining, that little bit more fun or humorous. And that will stand you in quite good stead to start getting your videos ranking in YouTube. And this is another example. Again, I think I mentioned at the start, when you're starting out, you want to kind of optimize your channel content and the content you're putting out for search. You want to be found. If you have 0 subscribers, you can publish as many videos as you want, but if they're not being found in search and people aren't engaging with them, then YouTube will not push that content to a wider audience. So this is another snapshot of the CareerFoundry YouTube channel. So this is the how viewers found our videos in 2021, and you can see we were kind of going all in on search terms. So these kind of how-to videos, explainer videos, very like tangible things that people would search for in the short term to get some kind of insight or learning from. And you can see here the bulk of our views. I think just under 30% came from people searching. So in the search tab, when you type in a search query into YouTube and you get that long list of videos, that's a search result. So nearly 30% of our views in 2021 came from search insights and people looking for the content, which again is very powerful. So on to tactic number 3. I hope I'm not going too fast. As I said, this was more of a sort of broad overview of each of these points. And we can definitely open it up for Q&A at the end there. But tactic number 3 is remaking what works. And I think I have to be honest, this is maybe one of my favorite tactics on the list that I have here, because it's very, very low-hanging fruit for successful content. So what do I mean when I say remake what works? So this is also known as the sequel technique. And I think this term sequel technique I picked up from a video creator called Film Booth, which I'll reference as a resource at the end of this event. But in short, YouTube is basically your best source of analytical data for your own content as well. You can very quickly see what your audience is resonating with and what they're interested in. And the sequel technique kind of builds on that. So say you've started your channel, you've published 20 videos. Most videos say, maybe if you're lucky, we'll get, 400, 500, 600 views, but maybe you've got one video that has, say, 2,000 or 3,000 views. So something in that video has really resonated with the audience that you're trying to capture and trying to grow out and build your channel with. And what the sequel technique refers to is then taking that video as kind of like a kind of like North Star and then remaking it. So I'm not saying you should do this immediately. Usually give it a bit of time, otherwise your audience might become a little bit weary of the same video coming out every other week. But yeah, remake that video. And that's what that's why it's referred to as the sequel technique. You're taking content that performed well in your channel, you're remaking it, maybe giving more value, more information. Maybe it's a little bit longer. Maybe the production quality is that little bit higher. And you're putting that out and you're feeding it back to your audience at a later date based on the fact that it's performed well previously. To give you an insight maybe on CareerFoundry's channel again, if your goal again is rapid subscriber growth, which is kind of the theme of the event, is growing the YouTube channel, look for the patterns in your content. So this video here with my friend Dee came out about a year ago. The idea was to give people an overview and an understanding of the terms UX and UI design. So what the differences are in these terms, what the differences are in the career. And it was published, I think, in March or April last year. And that video alone has generated nearly 4,000 subscribers for the CareerFoundry YouTube channel from one video. So that clearly resonates with the audience and obviously the UX and UI focus that we have at that period of time in YouTube. So for example, this would be a really strong contender for the sequel technique. So if we maybe remade this video now, it's been well over a year. The idea is that we would have a similar title, a kind of similar theme in the video, but we'd maybe give more value. We'd maybe give more information, more insights. Maybe the production quality is different. Maybe it's like a kind of round table event. You try and make that content a little bit more engaging, a little bit better essentially, and then feed that back to your audience. And then another example, my previous employer, AJ and Smart, you can see here from the timestamps that I actually took these screenshots this morning, but the timestamps are from 2 years and 1 year respectively. But I created a video with my colleague Brittany, which was to help UX designers kind of get started in the field. Like, what do you need to know? What do you need to do? What's the kind of time frame for it? And that video really took off at the in the first week or so. I think it had several tens of thousands of views. So we already knew that we were onto this kind of runaway success with YouTube, with this video on YouTube, sorry. And about a year later, we implemented the sequel technique and we decided to remake it. The video in question with Brittany had generated about 5,000 or 6,000 subscribers after about a year or so. So it was another strong contender for a remake. And then we did that in the summer of last year with my colleague Amber. So we really did dive deep into the content of what worked and what we felt people were excited about in the original video, and we went all in. I think you can see that the difference here is the first video is nearly half the length of the second sequel video. And we also gave 7 very tangible steps and like a very clear timeline. And if you do go onto YouTube and you search for this video, I think it will probably be one of the top search results for UX design, or how to get started in UX design. And you can see the comments. There's thousands of comments with people saying that they would pay for this video, that it was valuable, that they felt they can't believe that this video was free. So I think that's another example of like taking something that worked very well and then refining it, and then it just blows up again in the audience. And I was quite excited to see that video has now reached over 1 million views, which was really cool to see. Quick fact, that was one of the early examples of publishing a video that gets seen by a lot of people, but there's a slight flaw with it. It was ever so slightly out of focus, which is very much on me. But it's quite frustrating now to think that 1 million people have seen a video that I've produced this out of focus. Anyway, it's a great video. I would definitely recommend checking it out as well. There are some caveats to the sequel technique that I'll detail here though. And I've kind of touched on one already. Don't simply repeat the same video over and over again. Your audience will notice, they'll pick up on that, they'll get very bored. They might even unsubscribe if they feel you aren't providing sustained value going forward. And you want to offer your audience more with each update. So as I said, it can be length, it can be production value, maybe the information you share, maybe you share some resources, maybe you do some kind of giveaway in it, but you have to offer a bit more. You can't just remake the same video. And again, maybe this is a tactic that you would only seek to use annually per video if you're trying to grow up that channel, because people do have quite short attention spans at times and they will notice very quickly. So that was the sequel technique. Thumbnails and titles, brackets, win the click. Now, this is one of my favorite areas. I feel like I could definitely talk about thumbnails and titles for several hours if I was allowed to, but we only have about 20, 30 minutes left. So I'll try to be quite concise. Thumbnails and titles are incredibly important on YouTube. I think one of the most important takeaways here is take them very seriously. You can have a beautifully produced, articulate, and informative video, but if no one actually clicks through in that video to watch the content, YouTube won't be able to push it to a wider audience. So you really do need to focus on the quality of the title and the quality of the thumbnail. And there's certain ways you can do that, which I'll hopefully detail for you in the next few slides. But thumbnails, titles, and typically the description of your video all contribute towards what's called the click-through rate, or the CTR percentage of your video. So however many times, if someone's scrolling on YouTube, they see your thumbnail and video pop up, the percentage of people that actually see that thumbnail and video and title and click through to it, that represents your CTR. And you can get quite good indications in analytics in YouTube of if a thumbnail or a title are quality, or maybe there's something you can do to refine them. So what makes a good thumbnail and title? I think I can maybe sum this up in one word, and I would say intrigue. You really have to consider when you're producing content on YouTube and trying to grow a channel, how your content, how your videos in particular will solve someone's problem. It's really not necessarily about you or the team. It's about what problem you're solving for your viewer. So think about it when you go on YouTube. You're not really interested in what the creator necessarily has to say or their opinions, but it's more about how it might affect you and how it can inform you or what you can learn. So always keep that in mind. And I think a good breakdown of thumbnails that definitely stand out, and maybe your eye's already been drawn to it, but I think I typed into YouTube when I was creating these slides, how to grow on YouTube in 2022. And the first hit is a channel called Nick Nimmin, who's a fantastic creator. And if you're interested in this topic, I would definitely recommend checking out his channel and subscribing. But you can see here, like, he's got a very simple thumbnail. It's just a very simple graphic. But he's created this element of essence of intrigue here. You can see he's got the text last year, this year. There's not really too much given away, but it kind of lends into the title of Grow on YouTube in 2022 by doing these things. He doesn't tell you what the things are. He doesn't really tell you how many things you have to do or how hard it will be, but he's created this intrigue. And you can notice as well, maybe stylistically from the thumbnails that are on screen right now, you can see he's the #1 ranking video for this search term, but his thumbnail is very different to the other three. The other three have got this kind of orange hue, they're kind of beige. His is this vivid blue with yellow text, so it really draws your eye in, and then you see the title. And that's kind of something you want to keep in mind when you're creating thumbnails. It's not necessarily about making something that's aesthetically very nice, but you're trying to disrupt the viewer's attention. You're trying to grab someone and say, hey, look at this video. This is going to help you. Click on it, give it a watch. So what does a good title typically do? As I mentioned, it kind of creates a sense of intrigue. These thumbnails and titles that are present on screen are from one of my favorite channels, Kurzgesagt. I nearly got it that time. But they have thumbnails that are very vivid in color, very high saturation, and they have amazing titles. So I've not actually watched either of these videos, but what dinosaurs actually look like, and you have a thumbnail with these really interesting animation style characters with wrong and right. I don't know if you're interested in dinosaurs, but I think I would definitely, if I saw that thumbnail on my YouTube homepage, I would definitely click on it just because it's very well executed. So hopefully you can see here what I'm leading to. The title isn't replicated in the thumbnail. It's meant to support the thumbnail. Typically, I would say you don't want to tell the viewer exactly what's going on in the video in the title. You want to keep it short, succinct, and relevant. And typically, as I mentioned, when you're building a channel from scratch, if you're just getting started out, maybe you've got that. You should have a sort of focus on search-related content. Typically, with search-focused content, it will answer someone's query. So, how do I do X? This is how you do X. So keep that in mind as well. Now, thumbnails. Again, as I said, I could talk about this topic for many hours, but I'll try to be quite short here. A good thumbnail will support the title, not replicate it. You don't need to have masses of text in your thumbnail. You want to have some kind of intrigue factor that maybe alludes to something happening in the video. So you can see here, I believe this creator is called Humphrey Wang. Maybe I'm incorrect there, but I think his video was on some incoming market crash, and you don't really see the title here, but you can tell something. It's not a positive title. Something dramatic is happening. I would imagine if I click through onto that video, there'll be some bad news at the start. But you can kind of see it's supporting. So his title will be something very different, but he's just got the words "uh-oh" and then a massive red graph with a negative facing bar chart or line graph. So ideally, the thumbnail would provide a bit of a glimpse of the content or the topic itself to the viewer. And interestingly enough, I think also it should stand out against the other thumbnails. So I mentioned when I showed that Nick Nimmin search result with the blue thumbnail at the top. It doesn't really need to be pretty, but you want it to disrupt the viewer's gaze. You want to have this kind of pattern disrupt moment where someone that's searching or scrolling on YouTube sees your thumbnail and clicks through to it. And just to summarize that, in short, titles give wider meaning and intrigue to the content published. It gives more relevance to your publications. And again, if you're starting out, it should and should include keywords and phrases to rank for key search terms. Typically, thumbnails ideally create a pattern disrupt so that the viewers scrolling and searching, it stands out to them. Ideally, you can do this quite simply. You don't need to be a fantastic graphic designer, but you can do it with using bold text and colors, a simple message, maybe 1 or 2 lines of text at most, and you're basically just promising something in the video to come. And it should support the title and not replicate it. I can definitely recommend spending a bit of time researching thumbnails. When you're coming up with content ideas, what you really want to do is see what's out there already. So when you're doing your keyword research, you're looking at what's there, what's performing well on YouTube, that your peers or contemporaries or even competitors are doing. You want to compare and contrast the thumbnails that are on the platform. Sorry. So ideally, I would mainly just focus on the top 5. That's usually a good indicator of the quality of the video and the quality of the title and thumbnail. You don't need to scroll down for ages taking stock of every thumbnail out there. But you want to start to identify the patterns and trends in the topics mentioned. What kind of colors are being used? What are the graphics featured? How can you stand out against these for your business or for your content? And just a quick question to the audience as well. Just drop it in the chat. I mean, maybe you have a favorite channel or a favorite creator. But when was the last time you clicked on a YouTube video purely for the thumbnail? I'd be quite keen to hear that. What was the topic of the video? So, what was the last video that you clicked on just because it had a really good title and thumbnail? I'm quite curious. If you let me know in the chat, I'll scan the answers and see what we have at the end there. So some quick tips when it comes to thumbnails and titles. When planning new content, I ideally generate 5 to 10 title ideas before you do any kind of planning for your video, any kind of filming, any kind of editing. You want to have 5 to 10 titles. Write them down on a bit of paper. What stands out to you? What's the most intriguing thing? And then have that title in mind when you're filming your video. Always tie it back to that title. You can change thumbnails and titles once you've published as well. So you can do that. You can adapt and alter and update the thumbnail and title many weeks, months, years after the video has been published, if you feel it's underperformed, or if you just want to refresh your channel, for example. And I would definitely recommend taking multiple thumbnail images with each video that you do. So maybe you're filming with some talent, maybe you're filming yourself, but definitely take some really nice high-res images with a nice light on your face. Different poses and expressions usually help, and you get a nice bank of usable images. And typically with titles as well, I find that recency bias helps. So typically adding, say, the year or the season, it does help. Like if you have a UX design get started video and you see someone that has 2022 or maybe even 2023 now, you'd probably think that's more recent and more up to date, even if it's not. But I think definitely including a little bit of recency bias in the title of your video never hurts. And here you can see a selection of images. I think Maureen might actually be watching, so I hope she doesn't mind me featuring her here. But this is a UX video that we shot many months ago, and we always try and capture different poses and different styles for the thumbnail image. And then typically we might cut this out and have some text. You can see examples of that on our YouTube channel. But this is the kind of thing we would do. And Maureen is very, very professional, so she's very patient when we ask her to do all these silly poses. So tactic number 5, and I'm just conscious of time, so I'll maybe speed things up slightly. But tactic number 5 is drive traffic to your channel. That's quite hard to say, actually. Drive traffic to your channel. But yeah, tactic number 5. So if you're working in YouTube within a marketing team, or the focus is growing a YouTube channel for, say, for example, a new job, or they're building out their channel, maybe they've already got an existing audience. Maybe they don't. It's not always relevant. But you will, in most cases, have some kind of customer base or email list, or maybe a stronger following on LinkedIn. But ideally, you want to drive traffic to your channel. So what does that look like? Basically, it just includes involves promoting your most recent YouTube release. And a really nice way to do this is to share little teasers and trailers. So maybe even just clipping the first 30 seconds, of your video, and publishing that out as a little micro video with a link to the main video. But think about different ways that you can drive traffic to your YouTube channel and to your latest releases. Maybe there's also more digestible, smaller snippets within the video that you can cut up and publish. That also helps, and we typically refer to that as micro content when we're working on those videos. Here's an example from CareerFoundry. So this is just a 30-40 second trailer from a recent data analytics video. We just cut the intro off and published that with a link to the main video and a post that creates a bit of intrigue, gives a bit of context of what the video is about, and particularly if the production quality is quite nice, it definitely entices people to click through. And I would definitely recommend building a process for this. Maybe if you're working in a larger organization, or if you've just started on a team that's working on YouTube in a larger organization, it's likely that you won't be the one publishing this content. Maybe there's a social media manager, or there's different teams, for example, different community managers. Typically, you might not be the one that's relied on to post this content. But definitely build a process for that. At CareerFoundry, we have a Slack channel with a lot of senior, or a lot of the main stakeholders that are responsible for different channels, whether it's student communities or social media, and we publish all our latest videos with some context and some links and some thumbnails in that channel, tagging the relevant people so they can then take that and disseminate that amongst the different audiences that we have here at CareerFoundry. So that's definitely something I would strongly recommend doing if you're starting out. So tactic number 6 is identifying trends. And I referenced that little spike in the subscriber graph at the very start when there was a huge spike in subscribers. And I'll now touch on that a little bit more. But tactic 6 is identifying trends. So if you're working in an industry or a particular niche, at what moments of the year are there trends or updates or news that are really relevant to your industry and potential future audience on YouTube? When is traffic and search volume at its peak for this area within your industry? So you can really dig down and identify these kind of flashpoints within your industry's calendar. Say, for example, it's something design related. I would start to think about when design tools like Figma and Adobe start having their design conferences. You can really kind of piggyback on traffic that's engaging with these kind of big events, big newsworthy stories within the industry. And you can kind of tap into this content by creating opinion pieces, even reaction videos or assessments. That's usually quite a good way to get some like a nice intake of subscribers based on these popular events. In CareerFoundry's case, we definitely did this at the end of last year with a UX design trends video. That was a really successful video for our channel. I think to date, it's generated about 5,000 or so subscribers, 6,000 or so subscribers, but in the first week alone, it had 30,000 views and over 1,000 subscribers contributing towards the channel. So we kind of saw that designers in particular like to talk about the future of their industry, definitely on YouTube. So we, as the end of the year approached, we kind of decided to put this content out, which Maureen did a fantastic job with, talking about the future of UX design. We didn't necessarily name it that at first. It was 2022. You can see in the thumbnail here this massive 2022 UX UI design trends for 2022. So that was kind of the main message. And since then, we've tweaked the title, and we'll probably adjust the thumbnail on December 31st. But it's an example where you can kind of piggyback this kind of time of people are coming to the end of the year, they're looking forward to the next year and what's coming in terms of technology and their industry. So that was kind of an end of year publication for us. That video was, yeah, as I mentioned, a bit of a runaway success. It was also a little bit contrarian. Like, I think this kind of content works quite well on YouTube. There's always going to be someone that has a different opinion to you, but when you're expressing an opinion or an authority on a particular topic, like the future of UX design, there's no real right or wrong answer, for example. And in this video, it definitely generated a lot of comments, people disagreeing, people agreeing, people providing their own thoughts on the matter in the comments, which was really exciting to see. It generated quite a lot of buzz within our community on YouTube, at least. So tactic number 7 is show, don't tell. This is a little bit more theoretical, and the same with tactic 8. But what do I mean by show, don't tell? So technically, I would say this is maybe more of an editing, videography kind of trait to think about. But when it comes to explaining complex information, it's always best, if you can, to provide visual cues and visual stimuli when you're describing this. If you describe to someone in detail, if I was to describe to you now how to design a UX wireframe and you've never done this before, me just telling you this on an event or a call, I can guarantee if you talk to 10 people, they'll all have very different outcomes and outputs with that. But however, if I show you me doing that, you'll have a very clear visual cue and something that you can replicate. So it's always generally better to show practical examples of what you're doing. So maybe you're describing something like a technique, how to do something. Maybe you're just referencing something in your video. It's always better to show that. People resonate more with this kind of visual stimuli, and it makes the content a little bit more relatable. It tends to retain interest as well for longer. And I think ultimately leads to a better learning experience if people can kind of see what's going on camera to kind of explain it a bit better. What does that look like for us in video? Well, we did a video last summer again on wireframing. Again, we used the sequel technique. We had a very successful wireframing video that we recreated with slightly better production quality and a digital element to it as well. But we basically showed the talent in question, Dee. We had some over-the-head shots where she was sketching out the wireframe on paper. So not only was she explaining what a wireframe was, she was also showing in detail how to do it both on paper and digitally on a tool that we then provided to the audience. And you can do that with digital tools. If someone's doing something on a laptop, you can also record the screen and incorporate that into your YouTube video or into your video edit. That's always a really useful way of keeping people current and up to date with what you're trying to do. And if you can't always create the content yourself, there are other alternatives. You can use websites like Storybox and Shutterstock. If your company or yourself are willing to pay for a subscription, it's usually a licensed B-roll that kind of gives people a nice bank of content to draw from. So if you need some group shots, but you can't film a group, or say, for example, you're filming a concert, but you don't have any footage of that, you can go on here and download that. And it kind of just reinforces this message and what you're describing to the audience. Sometimes it can be a bit cheesy. There's a lot of stuff like this on Storybox, these kind of corporate, slightly cheesy handshakes and smiles. And yeah, there's a lot of very excited people hanging around by photocopiers as well. So yeah, just beware of that when you're incorporating B-roll. And the last tactic, again, maybe more of a sort of mindset than a tactic, but I'm kind of conscious of time. I want to take some questions from the audience. Tactic number 8, and the last tactic for today, is nobody knows who you are. Sounds a bit weird, I understand that, but nobody knows who you are. This is their first video. So maybe not the nicest way to think about the content you're putting hours into and trying to grow out in your new job, or maybe a personal hobby with YouTube. But it mainly relates to the sheer volume of YouTube users. So I think YouTube at present has upwards of 2 billion monthly active users. And in short, unfortunately, when you're starting out, you will be a very small fish in a very big pond. Regardless of how well, say for example, you're working for a company or an agency, regardless of how well you know your brand and company or product, many people won't. So what does that mean practically? It means optimizing videos for search, which hopefully lead to a lot of cold leads coming to your channel. It's your job to kind of inform, educate, and inspire people for the very first time and get them coming back for more videos. That's really key with this. Some do's and don'ts, typically with this in mind, don't talk about your product or company like everyone already knows it. Chances are they don't, and it kind of turns people off quite quickly to have you assume that they know things that they don't. Do introduce key terms and concepts very clearly. And I definitely wouldn't feature any kind of in-jokes or references, any kind of memes that are relevant to your city or your company or your job or your interests. Like, no one's going to really get those. And also avoid time-specific content. It's very niche, and it doesn't really age well if you've got a video that's doing really well, but you're referencing something that happened in 2018, So try and avoid that as well. But do position your company, brand, product, whatever you're working on with YouTube growth, as something that will improve or solve an issue for the viewer. So yeah, generally speaking, people come to YouTube to be entertained, to solve a particular problem, or learn something new. Ideally, with content, I would recommend trying to incorporate all 3 of these traits or areas. And if you can do that, it inspires trust in your channel, and it convinces people to engage more with your videos and ultimately subscribe, which is what the theme of this event has been about. So lastly, and this is maybe the most important tactic, if you want to call it that, just have fun, enjoy it. YouTube is a really fun and rewarding platform. It's certainly opened a lot of doors for me. I've been able to travel with it. I've met some really interesting people with it. I also really enjoy it. It's incredibly creative, and especially depending on the role that you're in with YouTube, it's incredibly fun. There's a steep learning curve at times, and there's a perceived higher barrier to entry as well, as we mentioned earlier, but it's fun. So just enjoy it, make it what you can, and just, yeah, go wild. So I just want to share some quick resources and tools, but I'm conscious that we're a little bit short on time, so maybe we can also include these in the email. But in terms of learning and some tools and resources I can share around that, definitely my go-to channel now for any kind of YouTube knowledge and platform optimization is a channel called Film Booth. It's focused on analytical deep dive, so he really goes into the data of why things are done a certain way and how you can do that. And unlike a lot of YouTube commentators and growth specialists online, where there's maybe 20 minutes of waffle and then not much content, he just dives straight in and shows you very practical examples. So it's a really good channel. I definitely recommend subscribing to that. Incidentally, this chap here, Tyler Fleischman, is the editor for the Film Booth channel, but he focuses on really breaking down and distilling very large viral YouTube content creators. But he gives very tangible advice and guidance on how to create videos in a similar fashion, from thumbnails to titles to editing techniques and things like that with videography. And then I think the last tool that I feature here is vidIQ. Now, this is a combination of a tool and a channel. I definitely recommend checking out the freeware on vidIQ. It's really good for building banks of keywords, seeing which keywords are trending and where your videos are ranking for. So really fantastic for that. And also their YouTube channel is packed with videos, all free and really interesting. YouTube itself also has the Creator Academy. There's loads of instructional how-to videos and articles. really in-depth stuff, especially if you're just starting out. Maybe you've not even set up your channel yet, but I would definitely recommend checking out the resources that YouTube offers. And it's definitely information that's coming straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. So that's always valuable. And next steps, I mean, hopefully if you've taken anything away from this, I think just embrace the platform. I would definitely recommend studying your favorite creators and your favorite channels and seeing what they do and what resonates with you most in the content, and taking that and replicating it. Definitely start making and iterating as you go. Going back to that Ali Abdaal sort of mindset from slide 4 or 5, I think just get started and then get good. And you can, once you've got a body of work on YouTube, you can start to dig into the data and see what's working well and what's not. Don't be discovered by low views. It's definitely a long play. I know channels that take years on YouTube to kind of even reach 1,000 subscribers, but definitely the reward is worth it, and it starts to compound over time. So yeah, work backwards from the goal. What does your company or organization want or need? Where is the audience for that? I'm sure there's already channels that are doing similar things. How can you tap into that? And where are they already watching the platform? So always be mindful of that as well. And thank you. I think right now we can maybe invite Will back in and maybe open up to some Q&A time here. I think we've only got about 10 minutes left. But I'm going to have a glass of water because I've been talking a lot. So
thanks for that. I think that was really detailed, and it went into lots of nuggets of information, which I think which I found useful, but I'm sure that the audience also found useful. We did have a couple of questions coming in, which I'll take. I've also got a couple of questions. And apologize if I get anybody's name wrong, but Olwani is asking, is it okay to start a YouTube channel for a particular content and later change the content with time?
I think so, yeah. I think definitely I've seen that happen on many channels. I think just be honest with your audience. If people subscribe for a certain topic or a certain niche, and you just start randomly posting videos about something completely different, that might come as a bit of a surprise and lead to a quick unsubscribe. But I think just be honest and kind of document that journey. Like, why are you pivoting to this? Just maybe make a series of videos where you're talking about the process behind that, and maybe there's something else you can offer that's wider than a niche. Maybe they just subscribe for your personality or the editing style or the type of content you're making. So yeah, I think that's absolutely possible.
Definitely. Maybe one thing which we haven't also mentioned in this, and we could do a webinar in the future, is about the money.
Well, I was mention that too much, but yeah.
Maybe it's just interesting also to tell the audience a little bit about the kind of like the, you know, how much money like videos can generate, and yeah,
I mean, I think definitely as an individual creator, YouTube is one of these things. Again, if you can put the time in and the work and be consistent, you can make good money on it. You know, I was chatting to a friend at my previous employer maybe 6 or 7 months ago, and I believe the UX design get started video that we published in the AJ and Smart channel had made something like 14,000 euros in AdSense revenue. So AdSense is the kind of the program by which YouTube attributes a value to the advertisers that are booking ads on your channel and generates revenue for you. So if you're an individual creator, definitely, I think if you can focus on really high traffic videos, after a couple of years, you can really start to see the rewards financially.
Nice. And that's taxed when you cash it out, hey?
I believe so, yeah. Depends where the channel is registered, though.
A question from my side is, how do you go about pinpointing who is your audience? Because, I mean, there's so many different avenues that you can take it down. How do you kind of find your audience, or how do you research about your own audience?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think it depends if you're working on YouTube as maybe part of a video marketing agency, or maybe you're doing it in-house for the company you work for. Definitely the audience will be whatever the business needs, I guess. So that can be a little bit different. If you're an individual creator, there's maybe a little bit more freedom in identifying that. But I think it's this nice intersection of what your interests are and what people are searching for on the internet, and where that middle of the Venn diagram is, like, it's kind of the sweet spot. So if you can make content that you're interested about and that you're passionate about, the audience will kind of find you, because there's kind of a niche for everything on YouTube. So yeah, I think it's a great platform for people searching for things. And if you can be one of the top videos that pops up when someone searches for a key term, you'll start to build an audience that way.
And I think following up from that, Paul's question, how niche should your channel be, or should you be as a channel? What do you think about that?
That's a good question. I think it definitely depends on what you're interested in. I definitely wouldn't worry too much about how people perceive it if it's too niche. As I say, there's usually an audience for everything now on the internet. The less said about that, maybe the better. But definitely, I think you can be quite niche, and it depends on what your industry is. I would definitely recommend looking at what other creators and channels are doing, not only on YouTube but on other platforms like Instagram and LinkedIn and TikTok, and maybe there's other examples out there that are as niche as your topic, and you can see what they're doing and what they're building on, and either collaborate with them or build on their successes as well.
And Mohammed's asking, for somebody who's like just starting out and wants to get into YouTube, where would be a good place to start for a complete beginner as a YouTube creator?
That's another good question. I think definitely check out some of the channels I've mentioned. So Film Booth, I would definitely recommend. Nick Nimmin, I mentioned earlier, just to get a bit of an understanding of how the platform works, and how things like thumbnails and titles are all kind of integrated, and what kind of analytics you should be focusing on as well. Get a bit of an understanding of how the platform works and what some of the big operators are doing on there. And then also just look at what your favorite creators are doing. As I mentioned at the start, like, kind of think about your favorite channels. Like, why did you subscribe? What was it that sort of intrigued you enough to subscribe? So I would definitely do that. And then the next step would just be start publishing. And chances are, if you're doing it for the first time, you'll probably hate the videos. You'll probably hate the sound of your voice, how you appear on camera, the background, the lighting, everything. But definitely just get started, and then you can iterate and develop and progress as you go. But you just have to hit publish, like that Aerosmith thing, just hit play, just hit publish.
And when you're like hitting publish, when do you think is the best time to schedule these videos? Is there a certain like kind of like a scheduling timeline that you have, or?
Very, very practical question. It completely depends on the audience that you're building. So, for example, in CareerFoundry's instance, a lot of our audience, and you can see this in the analytics, the majority of our audience are US based. So typically we try and publish videos maybe later in the afternoon. So in East Coast America, when people are waking up, they can start to see the content and consume it. But YouTube literally tells you, I believe, when the best times to post are. So honestly, it's one of those platforms that the analytics and the robustness of these analytics are just so insightful. It kind of gives you all of the answers. You just have to know what to look for, and what to focus on. So it depends where your audience is.
That's great to know. And how would you go about optimizing a video to get more views? So you want to get more views. How would you go about optimizing it?
I feel like that could be a potential, that could be a whole separate webinar in itself. But I think first and foremost, like optimization of videos, it means a lot of different things to different people. But for me, definitely, I would recommend looking at some of the big creators. So you've got people like Mr. Beast, Casey Neistat, Ali Abdal as well. Like, you'll notice very interesting editing techniques that they have. Like, they get straight to the point. YouTube does not tolerate kind of waffle and like delay, but get straight to the point, have lots of cuts, have lots of visual stimuli, particularly in the first few minutes, to kind of hook people in, and also really optimize your titles and thumbnails and iterate with those. It can be, just because a video hasn't performed initially in the first couple of weeks, I would say you can go back and optimize that thumbnail or title and revisit it. And that definitely stands your content in good stead for being noticed and picked up on. Yeah.
Do you find that sometimes like you release like a video and like maybe you haven't got many subscribers at the start, and that video you released and it didn't get many views, and you think, okay, actually it was quite a good video. If I've got now, I don't know, 10,000 subscribers, could you kind of redo a similar video because you think it's good?
Yeah, I think this. So there's two things there that are maybe wrapped up. I think definitely your audience will tell you if it's a good video or not. Like, you assuming that a video is good will not necessarily mean that it is good. I think it's very easy as a creator, even working for a company, to kind of get wrapped up in your own ego a bit and like, oh, we put 2 weeks work into this, it should be really good, and then it doesn't resonate with your audience and it kind of sinks a little bit. But yeah, you can definitely go back and tweak videos. But I think when you're starting out, you should probably be a little bit resilient in terms of the volume of views you get. And that was one of the tactics I mentioned, is kind of driving traffic. Like, I think definitely starting out, you want to drive traffic from other sources to your YouTube channel and to that content. That would be how I would maybe go about that. But that could be a whole topic in itself, I think.
Watch this space. We're going to have more videos.
Yeah.
Debbie's asking, have you got any channel suggestions for learning video creation techniques?
Video creation techniques? Yeah, in terms of editing, there's Premiere Gal. That's just Premiere, G-A-L, Premiere Gal. She's got a really good YouTube channel on editing content for different platforms, including YouTube. I would also definitely check out a channel called Think Media. They're fantastic, and again, I mean, I feel a bit bad leaving them out actually, but they were one of my go-tos when I was learning how to like set up a basic lighting system or set up a basic camera, or you know, like things like that. So they've got quite hands-on tutorials about setting up a basic camera, or even how to make a YouTube video on your phone. You know, you can do that. Most people can now record at least HD quality footage on their phone. So check out Think Media, check out Premiere Gal. Those would be my kind of go-to for kind of starting out with the actual video creation process.
And Paul's asking, how hard is it to get that first 1,000 subs, and what happens once you reach that point?
So I don't feel fully qualified to answer this. And maybe one thing I should have had at the caveat at the start is most of the times I've come into a channel, it's usually had a slightly established base already, usually around the late teens in terms of subscribers. So I've never grown a channel from 0 to 1,000. So I honestly, I feel a little bit fraudulent kind of referencing that, but I would imagine it is quite hard. I think the first 1,000, the first 10,000 are the hardest. But definitely after a certain stage, you unlock features. So you can unlock the community tab, I think, after 500, and you can kind of treat YouTube like a bit of a community platform. And you can also monetize your content, I believe. I think it was after around 4,000 or 4,000 watch hours and maybe 1,000 subscribers as well. You can also monetize your content. So I think the first 1,000 are probably the hardest. But again, you just need to get started and persevere and iterate as you go and build on your successes.
And how long does it take until you get one of those YouTube statues?
Oh, I think we're probably going to hit on CareerFoundry. We're probably going to hit the 100K mark, hopefully within the next month or so, maybe month and a half. But surprisingly, they're actually quite cheap build quality wise. I have to be honest, I was a little bit disappointed when we got the AGN Smart one. It's like kind of like a board of MDF with this like little metal silver platter, but it looks like it's made of solid silver, but unfortunately not. So.
Marion was asking, if you have different audiences in different geographical regions, how should you schedule when you upload videos? I think that's kind of touching on what we went on earlier.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I would focus on the main audience, particularly if, say, for example, your video is in like maybe you're a native English speaker, you're catering mainly to an English-speaking audience. I would definitely focus on North America and UK time, ideally for that. But YouTube will tell you where your biggest audience is coming from geographically, and I think I would just focus on that. Ideally, you want to get more subscribers in, and it's kind of low-hanging fruit to do that. I think if you try and second guess and cater to content in different areas in terms of publications, it's you just give yourself a bit of a headache, I think. So I would just focus on your biggest audience group, and once you start to get data on that, you can cater to that.
And consistency, regular publishing.
Consistency is key. That was tactic number 1, I believe. Yeah.
Daily publishing.
I did that in May. It wasn't fun for anyone. I definitely provided a lot of insights, but did not have the impact. For anyone that's wondering, we published a video a day on CareerFoundry's channel in May. And I've got definitely a few gray hairs off the back of that. So I don't recommend it. Once a week. I think once a week, if you can and you have the resources, once a week is kind of the sweet spot. I would recommend trying to do that. Also
having a pre-launch timer.
Yeah, you can premiere footage and schedule stuff and go wild. It's great if you have to go on holiday as well. You can just schedule it in.
Albany, I think, is looking to game the system. Can I create a similar content already on YouTube, and can it still beat the existing one? So I think creating content which is similar to something which already exists.
I think that ties back into the sequel technique that I mentioned, and I think definitely what I maybe didn't say at the time is like the sequel technique doesn't just apply to your own content. I think you can definitely look at what your peers and your contemporaries are doing on the platform and build on their successes. Like, I'm not in any way condoning copying content straight up, but you can definitely refine the message, refine the production quality, maybe increase the humor levels or the fun factor. You can definitely take what other people are doing and build on that. And it's kind of an easy win as well, like low-hanging fruit wise. It's you can see where the good videos are. You can just type in a search term into YouTube, and the first 5 videos, I would say, are maybe the aggregate of success for that search term. There's not really much point looking below the top 5. They're there for a reason.
And Debbie's also asking, can you schedule on YouTube itself? Can you do scheduling?
You can absolutely schedule. You can schedule content on YouTube. It's usually done in the uploader. So when you're uploading your first video, or when you're uploading regular videos, you can schedule it. So YouTube, honestly, for me, best platform ever. Like, I really enjoy using it. It's so functional. You can do all this stuff that you'd normally have to buy a third-party tool for on Instagram or TikTok or whatever. You've got your scheduler, you've got your very in-depth analytics. It's really something else. But you can totally do that.
And I think just to wrap it up, let's look a little bit towards the future. What do you think will be the future for YouTube if we look into the crystal ball and digital marketing together, not independently?
Well, it's a big question for the last question, but thanks.
It's a big question.
It's a good one. Just having a few seconds to think. So I think the future of YouTube and digital marketing generally, if I was to bundle them together, I'd say I think companies will maybe lean more on influencer marketing than for content creation. I definitely see that becoming the trend on platforms like TikTok and Instagram, and you can already see it on YouTube. So I think definitely companies and marketing agencies or organizations will lean much more into influencer marketing. So I think if you're an individual creator on YouTube, building that personal brand, building that channel, get into a decent audience base, it can financially be very rewarding if you can then come in and plug some kind of product or service or company. So definitely that is something I see more widespread. And in terms of YouTube, I definitely see them kind of refining YouTube Shorts, which if you don't know, are the vertical short form video that YouTube released in the platform, I think a year and a half ago, to kind of rival with TikTok and Instagram Reels, at these short vertical videos. So I think YouTube are going to figure out what they want to do with that, because currently it seems a little bit perpetually in the beta stage of the product. So I definitely see shorts coming in and maybe getting a bit more refined. But I think the bread and butter on YouTube will be long form content, and I think that will always be super important. So if you can really nail making good, interesting long form content, I think that will stand you in good stead on the platform going forward. But generally, I think maybe one last takeaway from my side, I think just try to be, if you're interested in digital marketing and video marketing perhaps in particular, try to be versatile. Like, don't just pigeonhole yourself. Always try and learn and draw from other creators. Learn about how video works on platforms like LinkedIn and TikTok and how you can kind of optimize content for that. There's usually quite a lot of crossover as well. It's usually short attention spans and hooks that kind of seem to be the consistent factor. But yeah, definitely try and be versatile in your learnings.
Awesome. I think that was a great way to end it. Calum, thank you so much for the presentation. I think that provided really valuable insights on what is a very important tool for digital marketing. And as we see also for CareerFoundry, but also for other companies, how important YouTube has become to the kind of like the marketing team. For anybody out there on YouTube who's watching on the live stream or on the Big Marker, who's thinking about a career in digital marketing, CareerFoundry does have a full program, digital marketing program, but we also have a free short course for digital marketing. If you're just thinking about getting a kind of like first flavor of what it's all about. Currently, we're also offering a career change scholarship for the main program. And if you'd like to find out more about the program, our dual mentorship model, the curriculum, maybe also jobs in your locality, I would recommend booking a call with one of CareerFoundry's program advisors. They're super friendly and they'll be on the calls to answer any questions that you may have about CareerFoundry or any of the programs that we offer. So I've put a little sticky note in the top right-hand corner for those on Big Marker. And for those watching on YouTube, just gone to the CareerFoundry website and click around and you can find a book a call there. I would also shamelessly plug, I think it would be rude not to plug CareerFoundry's YouTube channel, because this is all about YouTube. We have got some great content there, and I think you'll see one or two familiar faces. And I'll also plug CareerFoundry's blog. We've got lots of content on digital marketing, but also other topics, UX design, UI design, data analytics, and web development, and lots of stuff about career change too. And with that, Calum, I think I'd say thank you once again. That was really great. And I'll see you at the office.
Yeah, thanks for everyone. I hope that's been valuable. And yeah, subscribe to the CareerFoundry YouTube channel. Thanks a lot.
We're going to end on that.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody.